I'm Ryan Pack.
And I am Nicole Barlow.
And this is Soundtrack Your Life. Today we are joined by Lacey and Josh Vetter from the When Cinephiles Attack podcast, which drops new episodes every Monday. For people who don't know about this great podcast, which I've been a guest on, why don't you guys tell our listeners about When Cinephiles Attack?
After you, Josh.
All right. When Cinephiles Attack, our tagline is "For movie fans test the limits of their friendship." It usually begins with one of us bringing in a movie we are very fond of, whether from our childhood or today, and then at least one or three other co-hosts having serious issues with said podcasts, and the host having to defend their love for the movie. And it quickly devolves almost every episode. But it's all out of love. So if you are if you're the kind of person who loves to debate movies with your friends, if you get a little heated about it, you'll feel right at home with our podcast.
Do you have anything to add, Lacey?
All I'll add to what Josh said is that we have been friends for so long and we've known each other for so long. And our friendship is so true that we can really say anything to the other people and still be friends at the end of the podcast. So it makes for a really interesting time. 4 different people with 4 very different tastes in movies. And it's a good time.
I really want to fight with you guys today and have some conflicts, but I feel like we all love the film too much.
That's why I'm so excited to be here today, because this movie has pretty much been banned from our podcast. So I can't wait to talk about it today.
Is that because it's too universally beloved? Is that the band?
To some of us.
It's hated? Who hates
it? Not hated. There's a couple movies that we all have that are like so special to us that we don't even want to cross that bridge. And this one is Lacey's.
Yeah.
Oh, it's untouchable. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Is it Mela?
No, of course it's not. Ryan, who's my vendetta? Who's my vendetta on my podcast?
Rashawn.
Answer Sean.
My absolute best friend, and we can't agree on a single movie take ever.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for our Valentine's Day episode, we are talking about the 2004 Michel Gondry film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yay!
Lacey, why is this such a beloved movie for you?
Oh my gosh. I genuinely don't have the words for why it is. I remember seeing this movie back in 2004. I idolized Kate Winslet, and I think this was the first time I saw Jim Carrey doing something that wasn't stretchy-faced comedic Jim Carrey, and that was really exciting to me. It showed me another level that actors could go to in their career, which was really exciting. And there's just something about this story that is it just touches me so deeply, the concept of your body and your heart know things that your mind does not. Every time I watch this movie, I have probably seen it over 20 times. And every time I watch it, I notice one little detail more. I notice one little thing more that I didn't know or notice the time before. It's definitely a movie that rewards rewatching. It's so beautifully shot, and oh my God, the soundtrack, the music. I don't know that I've ever seen a movie that is so perfectly attuned to the music to help tell the story.
Yeah.
It's so melancholic and sad and sweet. It really hits all of the beats along with the characters in the movie. I love it.
I can't tell that you love it, actually. That really I think we need to a redo. I think if anyone out there remains unconvinced that this is a movie you need to be watching, then you just need to listen to that on a redo, because that is such a beautiful encapsulation of why this movie is so special. It really is special. I don't think there's anything else quite like it. Even in the universe of other Michel Gondry films, even in the universe of other similar films from Jim Carrey, this is probably the only Jim Carrey film I can fully stomach. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion,
Whoa.
but because he's such a normo. Like, he's just such a normal guy in this film. You do not feel overshadowed by his Jim Carrey-ness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and when he does go there, you know, he has a few scenes where he goes there where he's, you know, his toddler self and his child self. It's still so rooted in this world that it doesn't feel Jim Carrey shticky to me. It feels very genuine.
Yeah, he feels like a genuine boyfriend with, you know, sort of a quirky side, and you do not feel that any of it is, as you said, like a shtick or an act. It's so beautifully executed.
This is one of those movies, kind of what Lacey said, where every time I watch it, I come away with a new opinion. This most recent watch show we did for this, I came away thinking, don't be mad, Lacey.
Oh,
I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of our podcast into today's episode. I came away thinking, both of these people kind of suck.
No, that's true. I think that's true.
It's true. I think you're meant to believe that a little bit. They're human. They're flawed. I think that's, again, what makes it like really kind of cool and special is they're not willing to. It's not like a perfect portrait of a perfect couple, and then you feel heartbreak because they can't be together. You feel, I think, genuine belief on both sides that maybe this relationship wasn't meant to be because they're so flawed.
And then I think maybe they should be together and they deserve each other because they're both miserable.
Oh my God.
Right. And so you've got the
Okay.
you know, that you
Calm down.
That was just this watch through.
Calm down.
It is sort of the perfect breakup movie too, though. It's like it is romantic. I stand with Lacey in thinking that this is actually a really romantic film in most aspects, but it also is kind of a great breakup film if you're going through something. If you're going through some stuff.
It's romantic in that there is romance, but I think, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it romanticizes like breakups almost, and I think in a good way. I think it does it very well. It's like everything is romantic in this. You know, meeting someone for the first time is romantic. Breaking up is romantic. You know, going to a date on a beach is romantic. Everything is romantic in this movie, and I think that's because everything is romantic to Joel and Clementine. They're romantics at heart.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah, but they're also so different where you can understand why it may not work out between them.
But that's what I love about it. I love that we get that moment at the end with them hearing what the other person said about the other on the recordings, on the tapes. And like that to me is the biggest romance of it all. And maybe this makes me really toxic. I don't know. But like, that's what I find so like, that's what touches me so deeply, I think, is these people were at the end of their relationship saying the most hurtful, awful things that they could about their partner. And they're both hearing that and having that revealed. And that final scene in the hallway of, but you will get annoyed with me. You will get tired of me. You're going to get tired of my shit. Okay. That just gives me chills of like, I know that this might not work out, but I love you and I want to try again. Like that is so, so romantic to me.
Yeah, and I think it's a realistic thing. Like if you were to tell someone that just, you know, got in a relationship and they're head over heels the other person, like this is a doomed relationship, and I can tell you exactly why, they're still going to be like, well, I don't care. We're going to try to make it work.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking about.
The heart wants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not toxic. That's just a really beautiful sentiment.
Thank you.
Are you listening, Rashawn?
He better be. So let's talk about this soundtrack. So it's a mix of score and songs. So most of them are previously written, not for this movie. At least the songs are. The score is by John Brion, who is like my favorite composer / producer of all time. And yeah, the score is beautiful. And I remember the first time I watched it, the Focus Features title card comes up on the screen, and then the strings start before the movie. And like I remember like the hairs on my like neck like standing up, and I was like, I'm like it's preparing me for like this experience.
There is something so transportive about the way John Brion crafts music for film. It is so emotionally weighted.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the score to this film is, just like you said, it's like a map of the movie, and everything scored is a perfect fit to the scene that it attaches to. I think that's also maybe a product of how detailed Michel Gondry is in his filmmaking. It's just a really great pairing. It's one of those pairings that doesn't come along very often. It does make the hairs on your neck stand up. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's I when we rewatched it, I kind of tried to focus in because I'm a viewer where the score kind of happens to me subconsciously. Like I've never been one to really take note of that unless I'm making a conscious effort, and I did this time around. And the first thing that stood out, obviously the opening, because it's the first thing you hear and it's beautiful, but then that first scene on the train when they're first meeting each other, it's very, I didn't even realize there was a score, because Lacey pointed something out while we were watching. It's very like woodwind heavy and almost kind of like cartoony, like Looney Tunesy. And I was like, I've never noticed this before. And Lacey pointed out that the score only happens when they speak. So like those awkward moments of tension between the two of them when they're first meeting each other on the train is showcased in the score, where it's just silent, and then when they speak, it's like very like fun and loopy, kind of goofy, silly, like they are. But it only happens when they're speaking. So if you're not kind of holding an ear out for it, it just kind of happens, and it's just this undertone of their first meeting. And I thought it was brilliant
because it suits that like that awkward bumbling, when you're first meeting somebody you're attracted to and stumbling over your words and saying the wrong thing and invading their privacy and their personal space. It's so, that's like one of the lightest parts of the movie. I think it's their meet cute, and it is as effective as it is because of that music technique.
That you're so right. That's so true. And it's kind of like it is kind of bumbling and silly and childish, but so is falling in love with someone. It is a little bit like embarrassing. It's also like it's not John Williams, right? It's meant to be subtle. It's meant to carry the film, and it's meant to be kind of like this ambient, background thing. But that's what's so great about it, is that it's not easy to ride that line between subtle and something that actually like goes something along. And it's really cool that they were able to pull that off. I'm a big Michel Gondry fan. I'm like a creepy Michel Gondry stalker. I don't think we've ever covered him on this podcast before, so this hasn't come up, but I actually have a drawing of my husband that I commissioned Michel Gondry to do.
Oh my gosh.
When he was, it's like my favorite artifact in my whole house. At some point, Gondry was offering people, like, if you send me whatever it was like a very cheap amount of money. It was like $60. Send me $60. And then I'm like 5,000 portraits. And so for our first anniversary, which is paper anniversary, I sent him $60, and he sent me back the most incredible watercolor of my husband at my brother-in-law's wedding, like smoking a cigar with like, all of his like sort of ginger freckles. It's great. It's the most amazing thing. Like he like actually put effort into it too. It's colored and everything. So
I'm gonna need to see this immediately after recording. I have to see it.
Send it to the podcast as supplementary materials. Also, he did a book compilation of these portraits, and it actually has like a full page in the book.
Oh my gosh!
So, I'm like creepily into Michel Gondry. I think he's wonderful. I've been a fan of his since his music video days. I definitely wore out that compilation in college.
I have those DVDs.
Yeah, the DVDs, like the DVD set of like him and Mark Romanek and stuff. So he's fantastic, and I love him. And I think that, again, this is such a nice partnership between him and John Brion.
And Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah, exactly. Great trifecta happening.
Right.
A very artsy trifecta. Like, these three people are masters of their style in their craft. And the three of them coming together made such a great film. Such a great film.
And to do what they did with the score and like dropping it out and kind of making it the background when it needed to be for the story also takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of confidence in the script, in the score itself, and in the filmmaking. And I think they land that plane perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think John Bryan's juggling a lot of different stuff, because the movie is not like a straight romance, right? Like, there's sci-fi elements. You know, they're jumping in time, they're jumping into the mind. So there's like little elements of like psychedelia in there. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of horror in it as well. Mm-hmm. And so the score actually juggles all of these things.
Yeah.
True. Has a big responsibility to carry all these like very weird, surrealistic art kid elements.
Yeah, it has to find the tone of all of those different genres while still connecting them and having some sort of connective tissue. And I mean, it to me, it becomes a style in itself. Like, instead of, well, you're going to go from a drama score to a romance score to a sci-fi score. Instead, it kind of, the score as a whole becomes its own Eternal Sunshine genre of score.
It's also pretty distinctive, a John Brion score when you hear it, because the elements are always there.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
It's really impressive.
I just watched through Ryan before we came on. You said just really pay attention to the score in the movie, and so like that was, when you've seen a movie this many times, you can just pinpoint one thing that you're gonna watch and concentrate on. And music was treated almost like its own character in the film. It was, I hate to say the heartbeat of it because there's so many elements, but like, I don't hate to say the heartbeat, but like, I wish I had better words, but it's like the heartbeat of the movie. Like, the soul of the relationship is the music. Like, and that's a hefty thing to carry. And it does it seamlessly.
Yeah, this conversation about it also makes me realize that, every like relationship between two people is kind of its own world unto itself, that nobody else is inside. And I feel like it does a really good job of like world building their relationship.
Yes.
Like it's almost like it belongs to them. It's the score for their relationship and for their romance. And it almost feels a little bit like private. So there's something very cool about that and how that's played. I have a question for the team that I could not figure out. Why is Mr. Blue Sky on this soundtrack? Did it only appear in the trailer?
Mm-hmm.
I had the same question. I was looking at the list and I was like, I paid such good attention to the music this time around, and I don't think I ever heard like even a little bit of it.
Yeah, is there some kind of like contractual thing where like 50% of Jim Carrey movies have to utilize Mr. Blue Sky by ELO?
I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't hear it, and I was like, maybe it was subtle and I just missed it and I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah, like, is it a record in the background? Like, what is it? It's nothing, right?
No.
Like, it's not there.
No.
There's 3 songs on the soundtrack that are not in the movie. Mr. Blue Sky, It's the Sun by the Polyphonic Spree, and Wonder by the Willows. So the Polyphonic Spree and the Willows have a different song in the movie. But there's a second song on the soundtrack that isn't in the movie for whatever reason.
Interesting. Maybe we forgot. Maybe we had that little bit.
Whoa.
Oh, what?
Was this cover? I didn't realize Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime. I didn't realize that was a cover by Beck. Was this made for the movie?
Yeah, that cover was made for the movie. The original was actually like kind of upbeat.
Well,
Beck was in his sea change era. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, this is
Sad Beck?
2004. Sea Change was 2002, I think.
I feel like he was maybe Sad Beck for a couple of years. It was the tail end of Sad Beck.
Yeah, that's the final. That's the final breath of Sad Beck.
Yeah, that was it. He was like, after this, I'm gonna be happy again.
I'm gonna start dancing with the flaming lips.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it works perfectly. I would have never guessed that it's a cover because I think the tone of the song, I think Beck's performance, and obviously I heard it first in the movie, so obviously the tone of the movie just enforces it. But I think it's a great song. I should seek out the original.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, other than its two like fairly megastar leads, it's not a very commercial film. It's kind of like an art house, like an art house like weirdo film. And we talk about this sometimes on the pod, but I think maybe these songs were added to make the soundtrack a little more appealing on a commercial level. It's 2004. You gotta buy it on like physical media and buy it blind. Maybe you don't want to listen to just John Brion, so this is like a little extra patty.
Radio Shack has to put the sticker of like featuring Beck, like they.
Yeah, is exactly what I picture is the sticker.
Well, you need your end credit song, right?
For sure.
So you needed something for that. I think because the Polyphonic Spree and the Willows both have other songs featured in the movie, maybe it was like some sort of deal, like, hey, can you throw us a bone and put a second song on there? So if people like the first one.
Right.
They've got another one. Soundtrack supervisor, Kathy Nelson, who we've talked about on this podcast. She is one of the many people who helped Tarantino on Pulp Fiction. She did the High Fidelity soundtrack, so she knows her way around a soundtrack. I wanted to talk about the Polyphonic Spree for a second because they use Light and Day like in the most like subtle way for a very not subtle song. Like, this song was everywhere in 2004. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, Joel's just, like, listening to it in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like...
And I remember, like, they were on a Scrubs episode singing this song. And it was, like, in a Volkswagen commercial. Like, this song was everywhere. And I was listening, I just got the vinyl, like, this week. So I was, like, listening to it with my family. And, like, my daughter has never heard the Polyphonic Spree, but like 30 seconds into Light and Day, and like she's like doing interpretive dance. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is why that song is so effective. Like, that's kind of what it makes you do. Like, you just start dancing, and they were like the perfect festival band in 2004.
Oh
yeah.
That's like they're like when for the festival band kind of genre, they're just like perfect band for the perfect time for the perfect genre. It's like when Fall Out Boy dropped in early 2000s for punk. It's like they just hit the target at the exact right time.
Yeah.
They're one of those bands where at least people our age, maybe not, like your daughter's age, but people our age would be like, have you heard of the Polyphonic Spree? And I'd say a good chunk of people would say no. But once you play them a song or two, they'll be like, oh I know. I've heard these bands. Yeah. They just kind of permeated pop culture for a few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they kind of like catalyzed around like a sound that was really popular and did it well and did it in a way that was like glossy enough where it could be utilized for things like that Volkswagen commercial, or it could feel like a natural element in freaking Scrubs, right. Which I do not remember, but now I really want to find.
It's in one of the earlier seasons.
One of my favorite, like, this is a tangent a little bit. One of my favorite early 2000s things is this deal in TV where you would just have like an indie band like show up at the party.
Yeah.
Or like show up like randomly like in the show.
And then, yeah.
Like the Shins on Gilmore Girls.
Like the Shins on Gilmore Girls. Like, we're at spring break in Florida. You know who's playing Shins? The Shins are playing at spring break, which makes no goddamn sense.
We found that too in our podcast of like we've started to hit some of our like childhood favorites. In like early 2000s, even late 90s, there was a huge trend of just having a music video in the middle of a movie. Like whatever band was most prominent on the soundtrack, the main characters would go to an underground concert and the full song would play. It would just be a full music video.
Yeah. It was a thing, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the Boston showing up in Clueless.
Yeah, like
Yeah, there's a good example. Sugar Ray being in the Scooby-Doo movie.
Yes.
incredible.
Ryan's like, don't talk about Sugar Ray on this podcast.
This is an elite.
Get out.
Or the Patreon's gonna make us go watch them. Nicole.
The Scooby-Doo movie. I'm down. We like to do high and low art here.
Yeah. Life is about balance. Ryan.
Absolutely.
Totally.
It
Come on.
is. No, we've already talked about Sugar Ray on this podcast with Scott and Toronto. Because
Blocked it
apparently in Father's Day, the son that they're both looking after is following Sugar Ray on tour.
No notes, dude. That's perfect.
And I think this was before Fly. Before they got popular.
That's even wilder then, actually.
Yeah.
There are some bands too that, like, especially in their era, they really loved a soundtrack or like I think they were just saying yes to everything. Like whatever management was going on behind the scenes, they were like, yeah, that sounds like a really, really good idea to reach my audience. Beck is this way too. Like I have this running thing, like here in the LA area where I live, is you'll go to a concert and then Beck will just like be there. Like Beck goes to the opening of an envelope.
That's so
He's
cool.
on like every soundtrack somehow. Like he's just always like, oh, and the opening band tonight is Beck. Oh, guess who's playing the conference? It's Beck.
That's why. I mean,
Beck's not very discriminating. Is what I'm trying to
which like is great too to because because you never know who might, like from a marketing standpoint too. If 25% of the people there never listened to you before, but they like you now, then that's just a numbers game, Beck. Good job.
Well, he's an industry kid.
Yeah, totally. We don't like to talk about
his
how
dad.
Beck
His dad scored Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, jeez.
He's a nepo baby, people.
He's a nepo baby.
Dun dun dun.
And I think his dad is one of the Philharmonic composers.
Wow.
Or conductors.
Jeez.
So he's not just some guy who is like, oh, I've got like this song about like living on my friend's couch.
Right.
Right. That's what's so funny about it is like you think about those super lo-fi aesthetics of
Yeah, his slacker upbringing.
Yeah. It's great stuff.
Well, like I went to his Songreader concert, and Jonathan Gold, the food critic, rest in peace, he came out to talk about Beck. And he said when Beck first came out, his friend was all into it, and he was like, Jonathan, have you like listened to the new Beck album? And he's like, nah. He's like, I heard that song, it's all right. And his friend told him, it's because you need to like not have a car to understand the music of Beck. Like you need to
That's very good.
That's really good.
Funniest thing I've ever heard.
Beck is best enjoyed in a studio apartment rented out by 6 people at once
yeah.
with a record player instead of a TV.
It's like, oh, you're not living paycheck to paycheck? That's why you don't
That's why you
understand
don't
Beck.
get it. It says a lot more about you than it does about me.
I'm not sad that we went down this Beck tangent.
No.
now. This is
I mean, I think we had to go down a Beck tangent.
And really, though, back to the movie, that needle drop it's kind of the only, like, well-defined, except for the beginning, it's kind of the only well-defined needle drop song in the movie where, like, it's not subtle when Beck's song starts playing, and I think it hits like a sledgehammer. I think it's a really strong moment, and it works too. You can kind of tell that it's the end of the movie. This song comes, and it's sort of a bow on this whole thing of like, well, we as a movie tried. They're gonna stay together, and we're gonna send them off with this song. Like, good luck. I think it works really, really well.
Yeah, and I I'm pretty sure like Beck and Michelle Gondry have like a pre-existing relationship like prior to 2004 because I want to say did a few 2 or 3 different music videos for him.
Yeah, I think he did Deadweight, right?
He did Deadweight. I think Cell Phone's Dead came after, but there's definitely like there's a tie there, so I can see why maybe he gave him a little like pump up and priority in the movie.
Yeah, so have you guys seen John Brion live?
No, but what a dream.
I didn't even know he did live stuff.
Oh, I guess that'll segue into the next part. So, so I really got into John Brion, I think, starting with Punch Drunk Love. Mm-hmm. And that score will hit you like a sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. And then I found out that he has a residency at the time it was like a restaurant or a cafe called Largo. So he would play, I think, every Friday or like one Friday a month. I think it's one Friday a month now. And so after this film, he started working with Kanye West on Late Registration, which is the album with like Gold Digger and like Diamonds and Sierra Leone. So I went to go see John Brion, and he basically just doesn't have a set list and will just like start noodling around, and he has a bunch of samplers on stage, and he'll just build songs from the ground up. And he'll play some of his soundtrack stuff. Like he just kind of takes requests. And so around this time he was working with Kanye. So he brought Kanye out in like a restaurant for like 150 people.
That's nuts.
And it was crazy. And I've seen John Brion a bunch of times since. But after this movie, like it kind of brought John Brion out from being kind of this niche kind of producer composer to working with everyone. So he did Late Registration, which won a bunch of awards, and then he worked with Spoon on like The Underdog. He produced that for them, and the last thing I know that he did as a producer is he did the last 2 Mac Miller albums, Swimming in Circles.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a really accomplished music producer. He also, if you're a Fiona Apple fan, I'm probably the only one.
No. I got you, Nicole.
Thank you so much. I love meeting a fellow Fiona fan. He also produced a version of Extraordinary Machine, the album Extraordinary Machine, that didn't get released, but is sort of like the John Brion cut of that album that you can find. It's kind of like steeped in some controversy about what the record label wanted to create. And some of his kind of like really storied performances at Largo, where Ryan was, have been with her. So they have a very close relationship too.
I think he also did When the Pawn Hits.
Yeah, I think he did. I think you're right. So he's incredible.
I knew he had a good resume. I'm scrolling through his Wikipedia right quick right now, and holy moly. I didn't realize in February of 2018, Brion opened for John Mulaney.
Oh yeah, I was at that show.
What? Shut up. You were not.
Yeah, the Orpheum.
Yeah,
this is where I start to get mad that Ryan does more things than I do somehow.
But also, Lacey, did you know he did the soundtrack for Paranorman?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And Lady Bird.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a bigger John Brion fan than I realized. But it's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning. A lot of his stuff is so subtle and not that, this is not a dig at John Williams. It's just a different style. It's a different style for a movie, and it's a different style as a composer. But John Williams' scores are like very forward, and someone like John Brion's is like I'm seeing now something you don't even realize that is happening until after the fact.
Oh yeah, so I know that people don't want to talk about Kanye anymore, but on Late Registration on the song Diamonds, Michelle Gondry is playing the drums.
What?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's a fun fact.
That's cool.
So I think he said that he was super into the Eternal Sunshine thing.
I don't want to talk about Kanye at least in 2023, 2022 Kanye. But that era of Kanye, as produced by John Brion, has made some phenomenal songs, so it makes sense.
Yeah, can't discount the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We reject current Kanye.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
So we'll just talk about the Mac Miller stuff that he did instead.
Yeah, there you
which
go.
is also phenomenal.
Oh, and Frank Ocean. Holy, like, what?
Oh yeah, he did some strings for Frank Ocean. I think on the Endless Blonde era Frank Ocean, he got both Johnny Greenwood and John Prine to do strings for him, which I think is insane.
And he did orchestral arrangements for Beyonce on Lemonade. Sorry, we could just cover his entire Wikipedia page at this point.
Yeah, there's too much to go through.
This is nuts.
He's that accomplished and he's that, I don't want to say sneaky about it, but it's almost as if like he's somebody making an impact in all the things that you love and you don't even really know that it's happening. You just, his thumbprints are on it.
He also produced all of the Amy Mann songs on Magnolia.
Yep.
Wow.
And he scored Magnolia.
Wild.
Yeah.
I think that is so telling though. In his talent is universal. His music speaks universally, and I think that's a really important element in this movie and in this story, is that maybe you walk away like Josh walked away this time thinking Joel and Clementine were horrible people, but you're still attached to them at the end of it. And I think the music is the through line for that. And that's all John Brion.
Yeah, and like you said too, that he's someone who can go from Kanye to Paranorman to Eternal Sunshine to John Mulaney to Frank Ocean. Like, the range is kind of nuts.
So there is an alternate, they didn't shoot it, but there was an alternate ending to the movie where instead of this hallway conversation, it like fast forwards like 30 years and they're still like getting their minds wiped and getting back together and getting their minds wiped, which is a much sadder,
So
Much more depressing.
It's so sad.
And like, I'm sure it can be played and there can be a message there, like you kind of mentioned at the top, Lacey, about the heart and the body will want what it wants no matter what the mind thinks. But at some point that gets really bleak. Like,
well, especially
really
because
sad
the
eventually.
procedure itself is essentially brain damage. So you have to think of like the trauma they're putting upon their brains after 30 years of erasing memories. That in and of itself is sci-fi, depressing, scary.
Yeah, that's like too Kubrickian
Yeah.
for what
that's
we need
very,
here.
Yeah. That's exactly what
Yeah,
it
that
is.
kind of infinite loop of mind wiping that's a very depressing ending and some like very depressing commentary on relationships. So,
Yeah, that too.
nice that they chose to end on a note of I don't know, like I don't want to say uncertainty, but like a nice note of like you think you probably know like where this is headed. It's a little more sentimental.
Yeah.
It's like sentimental ambiguity. Like,
Yeah.
like, yes, it's kind of ambiguous, but we kind of know, but it's also sweet that they're giving another shot, but also like as an observer, you're kind of like, well, oh well.
And it's so perfectly, that end that we get is so perfectly pointed by everybody's got to learn sometimes. Like that's the song that we're left with as we're watching them run in the snow and then disappear and then run in the snow and disappear. Like now that you know that was a possible ending, I feel like that's a nicer, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's a nicer way of telling that story, I guess.
Yeah.
With the lyrics of everybody's got to learn sometime, you think, okay, this is the sometime. This is the time they're going to learn, okay, yes, we can make it work, or no, we can't. But how many times has that song played? How many times are they going to listen to that song?
Are they going to listen to it for 30 years?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I like that it lets the viewer draw your own conclusions about the future of their of their love.
And I'll say this about the movie too, to kind of analyze the movie a little more. To me, I don't think I would have really disliked that alternate ending, because to me, I don't see Lacuna, right? That's the name of the... I don't see Lacuna like surviving Kirsten Dunst's sort of sabotage. To me, that's a company ending move. Like,
Right.
I think the public backlash of that would have shuttered it. So I think I would have had some issues with that alternate ending, because to me the ending sort of reads with what Kirsten Dunst's character does and then meeting one last time. To me, I kind of see it as this is kind of their last shot. They're not going to be able to reset after this, because the company's going to go under. They both got their minds wiped at like almost the exact same time, so this is their last shot.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair way to interpret things. I mean, I feel like the movie gets dark enough when she finds out
Oh my god,
that she's been getting her mind wiped.
There's so much of that storyline that was cut out too, that we don't need to get into. But if you are a fan of this movie and you don't know about Mary's whole backstory, you should go look it up, because it makes those few small scenes that she has when she finds out that her mind's been wiped, it makes it so much more heartbreaking and just life shattering. You really understand why she does what she does with all the files.
And that scene with Howard's wife, Deirdre O'Connell is the actress's name, who I think she's one scene, some of the best acting in a movie full of incredible acting.
Yeah.
It makes that scene the heaviest scene in the movie, like heavier than it already is. So it's, yeah.
I like how they took something really complex and they distilled it down into an eventual cinematic storyline that really makes sense, because it is very sci-fi, and in that sci-fi respect, it feels like it could almost be a series.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it feels like it could have its own spin-off chapters and stories and deep dives, and because it is a big idea. It's a big idea, but somehow it also manages to work on this small scale that, you know, between two people, it's just kind of amazing in that way. A lot of movies are ambitious, but they don't necessarily like live up to the ambition that they set out with. And this one really does. There's so many ways to enjoy it.
It's a testament to Charlie Kaufman's writing, because I mean, obviously it won the Oscar, but like, it's like you said, it's such a big idea. Like, this company can wipe your mind, but of a specific person, and it with a lesser writer that would take 2 hours to explain, but like with a little drip feed that Charlie Kaufman is able to sort of feed into you, and like the moments where Mark Ruffalo is kind of doing the work and you kind of see how it's done, you can wrap your head around it almost immediately. Like, Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry do not underestimate their audience, and I think that shows. They're like, no, our audience is smart enough to know that if we show them enough, they can fill in the gaps themselves. And I think it's really excellently done.
And I think the first teaser for the film that came out before like the official trailer is they made a fake Lacuna commercial.
No way.
Yeah.
I love when movies do that. And
Oh, I have to
I'm all
find
about
that.
Tom
That's so
Wilkinson
cool.
is like pitching. Yeah, so Tom Wilkinson is like pitching his company.
I'm all about like out of the box ad campaigns, like Smile this past year, when they were placing people around like professional sporting events, smiling, or even Megan. Give me more of that.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
100%. I want to dig up that fake promo.
Yes.
For Lacuna, because I have a weird like memory of that happening. That definitely happened.
Yeah, I like how I can fill in these gaps in your brain.
You do though. It like jars my memory, and I'm like, oh yeah, all the Jägermeister I drank in 2004 is probably what wiped it. Yeah, I didn't need Lacuna. I just had a lot of Goldschlager that year. True story.
Before we continue with our episode, here's a word from our sponsor.
Enjoy listening to podcasts and ever wonder, can I make a podcast? But it seems so complicated. And good audio production can take time. What if there was a way to create an amazing podcast easily? Well, now there is. Introducing Podcasting Made Easy from Podtastic Audio. My production team will handle your entire audio production, allowing you to be the star of your show. This is Podcasting Made Easy. How easy? Well, so easy, you don't even have to press record. Now that's easy. Your listeners are waiting. Let's deliver. Sign up for a free strategy call today at podtasticaudio.com/easy.
So on his song, so he has one song where he actually sings on the soundtrack. It's called Strings That Tie to You. So he's playing, he can play most of the instruments, but he plays with Jim Kettner, who I believe is a really famous like session drummer, and Benmont Tench, who is his good buddy, but is probably best known for playing piano and keyboards and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, so a pretty stacked lineup of people to play this like 2.5 minute song with John.
That's not even like list. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and Benmont is at Largo all the time. Actually, after one of my first dates with my wife, we went to go eat after the show, and we were at the sushi restaurant. Benmont was sitting with a date. It was like around Valentine's Day.
Aww.
And I remember like being like, oh, that's Benmont Tench, and he's in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and he plays, I think he plays on all the Paul Westerberg studio albums, and I was like, just kind of like nerding out, and we weren't even like sitting like on the same side of the restaurant. And then after he finishes, he gets up and he just kind of tips his hat to me and then walks out.
That's such an LA like specific buff story, like a sushi restaurant where Tom Petty's pianist is like any other place in the world, not a chance. But especially because this was after you went to the Largo show, you said. Yeah, after the Largo, at a sushi restaurant, he's bound to see at least one person that knows who he is, and that's so cool. What a city.
Yeah, just know that if you're out at a restaurant in LA post-show, Ryan is talking about you, and
he will find you.
Or if it's my birthday, then my wife will find Camille Nanjiani.
Aww.
Also a true story. And then Nicole will ruin the whole thing by like really making it way too obvious that we're looking at him.
So at one point in the movie, when things go awry, Clementine tells Joel, "Hide me in your humiliation."
Uh-huh.
And I am going to tell you a humiliating story about myself.
Oh, here we go.
Which also illustrates how much I love this movie. So I saw this, the first chance I had. I went with a friend of mine who I had fallen head over heels for. So it was kind of the first sort of... I mean, like, I had dated girls and stuff before, but it was like the first time where like I felt like we connected on like this different level, where like we both liked music, we liked, we had very different tastes, but like we somehow like understood like each other's sensibilities. Like I would give her a book that she had never heard of and she would love it, and then she would give me a book, and things like that. Movies, music, it was kind of one of those things where she was like, oh, I kind of like jazz and like bossa nova music, and I'd be like, oh, you should like listen to this Kings of Convenience record, and so on and so forth. So we were both really excited about watching this movie. That was probably my idea because all the people involved. And, we both ended up loving the film. And I thought we were getting really close to like, all right, this is going to happen. And then I saw her the next week and she goes, oh, I saw it again. And I took the guy that I'm dating to see it because I thought it was so good.
Oh, my God, that hurts so bad. Oh.
No.
Ooh, that's
so
brutal,
hard.
Dude.
Oh, it's so terrible.
So the fact that happened to me and I still love this movie and I still love the soundtrack, like it's a real testament, right?
It really is.
To how amazing this is. The real kicker is so she ended up moving and she she's married with kids and stuff now, and we're still friends. And she just like celebrated her wedding anniversary, and she's like, I met my husband when we were at law school, because we both joined like a Shins cover band in law school. And I was like, oh, so so she would have never, yeah. So she might have still met her husband, but she would have not met her husband that way if she had never met me.
Well, she owes you a lot, huh? That is wild.
You get a fruit basket or something, like just a nice
Fruit basket.
an edible arrangement. I don't know.
So that is my humiliating story related to this movie.
I'm so glad that it didn't taint your opinion of it. I think that is totally a testament to the strength of this piece of cinema. I would never watch it again.
No.
I'd be like, no. Bye.
That leads me to the final question for today. Is there a movie or an album or something that, you had to take a break from because of some sort of humiliating experience?
Ooh.
Mine's kind of similar. It's not, let me double check. I have the right movie. Yeah, for sure. That's the right movie. So mine is kind of similar, not not as bad as yours. Mine was just the classic, went to a movie in high school, saw the movie, totally misread the situation, went in for a kiss after the movie and was totally dodged. It's a classic. It was Eagle Eye. Do you remember that movie? It was Shia LaBeouf. Real romantic I was.
Oh wow. Well, Shia LaBeouf movies, I think that's an automatic curse. You're not.
Yeah, hindsight 2020 for sure. But first date, dinner in a movie, thought it went great, got totally swerved at the end. Thanks, Shia.
So can you go back and watch Eagle Eye, or?
I mean, I could.
Do
I want to?
No.
I think I have. I think I watched it once again in college, and like, it's all about that first rewatch. You got to really take that on the chin, and then once you can get through that first wave and settle in, then you're fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mine was horrible at the time, but it's okay now. I saw Black Swan in theaters with my dad.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was a very uncomfortable situation. Very uncomfortable, and it made me not want to watch the movie for a few years after. I can watch it now fine. But that is not something an 18-year-old should probably see with their dad.
Was it playing at the right time?
I think
what was
my dad and I both love Natalie Portman, think she's incredible. And this was her big Oscar bait movie. And I was home, I think, from college when we went and saw it. On a break, and it was like he was trying to do something nice and let's have some father-daughter time, and we'll get dinner and we'll go see a movie, and it was all very, very nice, but it was just not great at the time.
What did you say to each other afterwards? Was there an exchange of...
Oh, absolutely not. Family trauma at its best. We put it all away and never talked about it ever again.
Yeah. Have you talked about it to this day? Have you said anything to your dad? Hey, remember that time, Dad, we went to see Black Swan? It was really weird.
No, he does a really good job of only focusing on the good things. So we've never talked about it, but we both agreed afterwards that it was a phenomenal movie and that Natalie Portman was otherworldly good in it. So we just danced around the very, very obvious Black Swan in the room.
Nice. I'll do a part 2 and piggyback off of Lacey 2 with a parental embarrassment story too. my family has a tradition of watching a movie every Christmas Eve, and we usually would just go to the premiere video at our town and just rent whatever is popular and watch it. So this movie came out in 2004, which means it would have been like 2005, probably Christmas Eve. So I would have been 14. And so I was a 14-year-old cozying up on Christmas Eve with my 17-year-old sister and our parents watching Closer.
Oh no!
That's so much worse somehow.
It wouldn't have been so bad if it wasn't Christmas Eve. Everything was nice. The lights were up. The room lights were down. The Christmas lights were up. We turned on this really critically acclaimed movie with a bunch of movie stars we all knew. You know, Julia Roberts, Jude Law. My sister and I have talked about it since. Laughed our asses off about it. Never once brought it up to her parents.
It didn't bring you guys closer.
Parents, no. Come on.
That is
Sorry.
right there.
What about
Wow,
you?
this has been like a weird therapy session. I feel like.
Yeah.
It's a Valentine's Day episode. Let's
Yeah.
get some catharsis out.
Yeah.
I can't top that. I don't have anything that good. And now, see, there is something. It'll come up in a bonus episode, I'm sure, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Now it makes it seem like I'm all cool, like I've never been embarrassed in a movie.
I do the
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Like I've made a lot of really embarrassing mixtapes, and then I had to take like a break from the things on those mixtapes for sure.
Yeah. Do you do the burn CD with a Sharpie on the outside of it?
Hell yeah, the
Yeah.
burned CD. Sometimes, if you wanted to get really crazy, you make like a whole custom label if you're really into someone. Yeah. Like this person, no, he doesn't get a Sharpie. I'm gonna make a label. I actually did have like a label maker. It's so embarrassing.
There we go. We got there.
Stickers. It like made stickers and you could like kind of like design them. They always had this weird like gradient or whatever. Because it was like only like 2 modes that you could really graphic design in. Graphic design was really my passion.
Can you remember a go-to song or artist that you would, if you were courting someone, would throw in the mixtape?
It's so embarrassing. I remember throwing on like a lot of Ben Folds.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
You know, because all Ben Folds songs are like, they're kind of embarrassing. They're just like confessional and dramatic and like piano pounding. It's just like, yeah, if you want to really tell somebody, let's throw on some Ben Folds.
Ben Folds was the kind of music that, like, as an adult you can appreciate it for its musicality and the instruments, but like as a teenager you're like, I listen to this because I'm smart. Like,
Yeah, 100%. That's what it was. It was like, well, I'm sophisticated. Like,
yeah.
obviously, it's thoughtful. Yeah, I'm sure there's much more that we could unpeel of this like terrible onion of me sending people music, but it's going to take more memory jogging from Ryan. Ryan will have to say something, then I'll have to be like, oh yeah, I remember. It's
You don't
really
want to tell the DC Talk story?
Yeah, oh my God. Well, DC Talk is something I just never, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something you're going to go back to anyways, but...
Yeah, I don't miss that. We're fine. I don't ever need to listen to like Christian contemporary rock. So whatever was foisted upon me during that particular relationship, Ryan is referencing the fact that I once broke up with someone because they took me to a DC Talk concert. If you don't know who DC Talk is, that's okay. I think it stands for Decent Christian Talk. And they were, yeah, I know. It was at UC Irvine. I know. Gets worse.
Hey, I went there.
Irvine. It was basically like an alternative band, but like set up around the idea of like praise and worship. And like, we're dating. This is like the last thing that you want to be doing
When you're courting
somebody.
somebody.
Yeah, it's not what you want. I mean, I remember at a very particular juncture, it was like, stand up. We're praising, we're worshiping now. And I'm like, no, I'm good.
Everyone's trying to be Reliant K out here, and you just can't match it.
Yeah, I think you told me that story when we first started working together. For some reason, there was this DC Talk thread going around the office. I think
You know, it's got to culminate with you bringing them on the show, right?
Hard pass.
Hard no. I don't think that they would accept that invitation.
Just bring them on.
We curse too much on the show.
I would have too many things to get off my chest, quite honestly.
I'd be like, what movies did you guys score? No, I'm okay.
They'd be like, can we talk about the Left Behind series with Kirk Cameron? We really want to talk about those soundtracks.
Oof. Shouts out to my mom who read like all of those books when they came out.
Thanks.
Those books had middle America moms in a death grip.
So cold. No, I know. I feel like they were in like grocery stores.
Oh, for sure.
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Grocery store checkouts next to People Magazine, Walmart, like everywhere.
Wait, if we're talking
Probably
about
still.
books a little bit, can I
Oh, no.
recommend a book that is like similar vibes to Eternal Sunshine?
Sure.
Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. If you are a reader and you like the ideas behind Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I think you'll really enjoy this book. Josh, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, it's very much about finding your one true soulmate. It's kind of multiversal. I don't want to give anything away, but it's about finding your one true soulmate in a sea of potential soulmates, if I could say that. We're right next to the laundry room, so as the day picks up, people gotta haul everything in. And yeah, I don't want to give anything away because if you're into it, check out. If you're a reader, check out the synopsis. If you think you'll like it, you would definitely will. It's also currently in production to be an Apple TV miniseries. So
Thanks.
if you want to read it before the show comes out, highly recommend it.
This is a great tip. You guys came with recos.
Yeah.
Read the book before it becomes a series, and you can be really cool.
You can. Have you
read the book?
You can be snobby to all your friends.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about the book before this came out.
Exactly.
All thanks to Soundtrack Your
Day
Life.
one. Well, thanks, Josh and Lacey, for coming on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you for
Thanks for
letting
having
us
us.
come on and talk about this wonderful film.
Yeah, this has been in the works for a while, so I'm glad that we finally got to do it. So where can people find you on the internets?
We're at Cinephile Attack on both Twitter and Instagram. From those, you'll be able to find Lacey and I's personal Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow us as well. But definitely check out at Cinephile Attack. We're very active. We like to chat movies with everyone and anyone. We'll have a lot of polls running. If you're still in a romantic mood after today's episode, I believe we just released our Twilight episode.
Yeah, baby.
So if you want to go check that out, hear us argue about Twilight.
New Moon's
yeah,
got a
we're
great soundtrack.
It sure does. It sure does.
Yeah.
And
Let's
very
cover that.
shortly after, speaking of soundtracks, I'm also, I believe this is coming out the same day. Speaking of soundtracks, we're also, after Twilight, releasing our Space Jam episode with IMO, the best soundtrack of all time.
Of all time, he says.
Of all time. I don't take it back. But yeah, check us out on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at Cinephile Attack.
And you can find us at soundtrack_your on Twitter and soundtrackcast on Instagram. And Soundtrack Your Life on Patreon if you want to become a member of our Patreon and force Nicole and I to go to a Sugar Ray concert.
Do it.
I'll do it.
Thanks for joining us this week on Soundtrack Your Life. Make sure to visit our website, soundtrackyourlife.net, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too.